To kill. Period.
Why would you watch every movie your dad did?
Why are you pushing me? I knew there was something about that guy.
The best thing to do in a podcast, because nobody saw me
I
shrug.
walked around the corner and there's Dennehy fucking grinding up coffee.
Got anywhere to eat around
I
here?
just fell out of the helicopter in the first 10 seconds of the show.
Because he was my dad.
Teasel's very Ahab.
Singing again, Rookie Biatch.
See, by the time he got to Cocoon, he was a total walrus.
Broadcasting live from inside the power band, this is The Blah. In this episode, everybody dies via the hand of John Rambo. I'm your host, Rambo Reen, along with my cohorts, John Higo
Yo.
and Chad Bow. I
Hey.
can do better than that.
Forever.
Ram Chad, Ram a rhythm, Ram Lab forever. God, talk about a crash and burn. Jesus.
You just fell out of the helicopter, bro.
I just fell out of the helicopter in the first 10 seconds of the show. Egregious. That's right, folks. We're going to be talking about the 1982 absolute classic First Blood. And it's First Blood, not First Blood Rambo.
Yeah, damn it.
I have seen that in subsequent years since this film came out, is they sort of tack the Rambo onto the end of it to let everybody know that it's attached to the franchise, even though this is the best film in the franchise.
No doubt.
So this was a listener request, and it's, again, another Sly movie. I feel like we've done 800 of them in the last 5 minutes, but this is an excellent movie, a favorite of mine for sure, and I'm sure Jarhigo. I can't speak for Algorithm.
No, you can't.
And I won't. C-Lab, is this a favorite of yours?
I don't think I had ever seen this.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I thought I had, but if I had, I forgot it so thoroughly that I don't believe that I had.
Interesting.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Fascinating, Captain.
I believe I had only ever seen this once before this viewing.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, when I was watching these movies, it wasn't really like, it's kind of a serious movie, you know what I mean? So when I was a kid, I wasn't like watching this over and over again like I might have been watching Commando, let's say, or even Rambo 2 or something like that, where it's just more like over-the-top action. This is like kind of sad, really. I mean, you know, yeah, I think I just kind of tucked it away after seeing it once and then just kind of never got around to it again.
Interesting. I think this movie for me was a pretty big deal. Even though like when Rambo came out, that sort of like upped the ante, and like you said, Ben, it was over the top action, and we probably watched that a zillion million times. But this one as well, even though I didn't really understand it as a kid, just firstly the knife, secondly the survival skills in the woods. You know, we were always in the woods playing war and, you know, sharpening sticks and pretending to make horrible homemade traps that would, you know, debilitate and injure people. So we were, you know, into this movie for sure. But I will say that watching it now as an adult, I don't know, I probably watched it a couple of years ago, but certainly the couple of viewings I did this week, like, it's a very not an action movie, like not an over-the-top action movie for sure. It's like you said, it's very sad and dark. What about you, Chad?
I think I'd always known that it wasn't quite as like hardcore action-y as like a Commando. And as I've mentioned before, I wasn't really like a hardcore Sly fan.
Yes.
Because he was my dad. And, you know, he's...
Yeah, right? Why would you watch every movie your dad did? It's kind of weird.
Exactly.
That is kind of weird, yeah.
It's just, you know, it's just kind of weird. So I didn't watch my dad's movies. I watched, you know, Arnie movies. I think it's not a hardcore action movie. I saw a really, really interesting YouTube video on Predator recently that I'll share by this dude, Patrick H. Willems, who makes some really weird but interesting videos. And he was basically saying that, like, Predator is the best genre mashup of all time. And he was arguing that it was a mashup of slasher films and action films, and like halfway through the movie it shifts gears, and so like it isn't the same thing, but it kind of, because it was something I'd watched recently, I found it really interesting how, you know, it starts off as like a Survivor style kind of slasher film in the sense that like Rambo is the predator and he's hunting cops in the woods, but he doesn't kill them. But then it shifts into full action mode, and so like it was just kind of an interesting. It had an interesting tonal shift in the movie that I enjoyed. So it was, I guess, in a way, it was kind of surprising that I enjoyed it as much as I did because I had just assumed it was just a Rambo movie. So I kind of thought it was going to be a bit more of a vanilla actiony kind of thing. But yeah, it was enjoyable for sure.
Very.
I suppose another thought that I had about this, being that this was the first time I'd really seen it, is the timing with which I'm watching it. So, like, I don't really want to go crazily deep into it, but I thought it was interesting to watch a film about, like, police power structures, considering how crazy the current environment is. And
Oh my God, yeah.
I had a lot of sympathy for Rambo just trying to, like, fucking get a bite to eat and like make his way north, and like how quickly it devolved into a complete shit show.
Oh my God. Yeah, I agree with you. I know it's funny. Like people today are definitely more apt to speak up to police officers. I kept waiting for him to say, "What are you arresting me for? You can't arrest me for that." Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. It was weird.
Just a different time, I guess. And tying into the Vietnam War thing, where they were, weak, and from the perspective of the right, they were weak and they lost the war, and from the perspective of the left, they're baby killers. Like it's kind of a lose lose, like it was a really
absolutely
weird and interesting moment in our history that I was too young to have direct experience with, but it would have been like our parents who would have lived through a lot of those kind of situations and stuff. So it's just kind of a interesting snapshot in time, I suppose.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. I so much thought of this as an action movie as a kid, and this is not. It is a film, and it is a really good film with, really serious messages and tones. And the action complements that, whereas a lot of the subsequent Rambo films and other action films, a lot of Schwarzenegger's films, like it's the action is the main thing. This is really the action is the sort of the backdrop. It's like the trimmings around, the main through line.
At least for the first two acts, yeah.
Well, yeah, but even the action is pushing the story, of him being sort of wronged and everything that he experienced in Vietnam, like that whole line that is still being pushed forward by the action. I think even in the end, almost more so,
Yeah.
Because he's a mess. I mean, this is a guy who's a vet and he's a mess and he's seen a lot of horrible things, and everybody's just treating him like shit.
Yeah. You get any thoughts on any of this stuff, Benny?
I don't really have a lot for this because not really a ton happens. I could give a quick synopsis.
Yeah, synopsis would be useful. It's pretty straightforward. So
sure. So decorated Vietnam veteran John Rambo is walking the land, much like Kung Fu or
totally
Bruce Banner, with a duffel bag. He goes to see an old, squad mate. Presumably, he is just fresh home. He goes to see his squad mate. Finds out that his squad mate has died of cancer. So he's just sort of wandering about and in the Pacific Northwest. And he shows up at in a town where the local sheriff decides to just take a dislike to him and give him a bunch of trouble. He ends up in jail briefly, escapes, more or less has one of, like, perhaps the record-holding 5-star GTA wanted level for the majority of the movie.
Totally.
And
totally.
It sort of culminates in a very emotional moment between him and his superior officer.
Yeah, that's great.
Nice synopsis, yes. Let's switch it up this time. My first note is that the score is excellent. Let's talk about that for a second. Instead of waiting to talk about it later. Because sometimes we end up skipping the music. And the score it's certainly iconic, but even more so in this film because it's the first film. Jerry Goldsmith is a Hollywood legend. He's iconic. His scores... He actually scored. This is a great nugget that I should wait for the nugget section, but I'll throw it out right now. He scored the Universal Pictures and I think the Paramount, either one or the other or both, the opening title music for those two movie studios that ran from like the 70s to like 2012.
All right.
He composed that. He's composed Total Recall, LA Confidential, every single Rambo movie, just a slew of films that I'm not going to list. But his scores are so iconic. And this one, the music, even the very notes that he uses in the composition are just fantastic. Like the parts when Rambo's walking down the road and we hear the sort of the lone sad stranger theme, from Rambo, and it just fits perfectly with what's going on the screen. And then, when we switch to like the cliff and the woods and all of that, and there's all that really cool like low end piano going on. It's just, it's perfect. It perfectly accentuates what's going on the screen. So, it's one of those instances we've talked about scores in the past where it perfectly complements what is happening on the screen.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I kept thinking there's like a specific piece that plays like kind of during the action sequences. And I kept thinking to myself, this sounds like somebody took a Slayer song and played it with like an orchestra.
Nice.
There's like one particular one that's just like really funny. And every time I heard it after that, I just kept thinking about it with like searing, like high saturation, distorted guitars, like double kick drums and shit.
Wow. I would actually love to see a cut of this film with that theoretical score.
Yeah, you should do a remix,
over
dude.
it. Yeah, that would be sick.
That'd be interesting. I'll just whip that right up. Don't worry. Take 5 minutes.
Yeah, in your spare time.
I think I ended up way more on the motorcycle that you previously were riding on, Benny. In quite a few episodes, you mentioned like not recalling the score, which probably was a good thing, Most notably, you mentioned it in the Blade Runner 2049 episode.
Yeah.
So like I definitely recognize the main song that kind of came up with, various reprises throughout the different Rambo movies. But other than that, like I just kind of fell into the film and I imagine the score was quite good. I'd have to revisit it, but I definitely, based on the pedigree you just rattled off there, Kev, obviously the dude knows what he's doing. So
yeah, he's really, really great. And this score is just excellent, man.
I definitely think jumping around a bit would make a lot of sense. I don't have a ton of notes. I've got maybe 3 or 4. And they're not really plot related. They're more story related.
Ben, what do you have? Like, did you kind of want to go through it chronologically, or?
I'm game for anything, man. I watched it like 1.5 times and just kind of came to the realization. I'm like, well, not a whole hell of a lot happens here. I mean,
true.
So I just was like, all right, I'm just going to zen on this one. I kind of, Kev, I figured you would be like, you would have very specific things you wanted to talk about on this one. So to be fair, I kind of figured you would have enough canon out there for me to just sort of riff off of.
I'm with it. I'm with you.
As my own experience would prove. Yeah. I just, the main thing was like, it kind of made me sad. Like I just felt really bad for, I really felt bad for Sly. And,
same,
it just struck me that way this time around. So it was even getting through the action sequences and such was, like, I don't know. I just was looking at it through a different lens, I was like, well, this guy is just like
absolutely,
he's just in survival mode, like it's not like a revenge story or anything like that. It's like, he's just like he feels like he's fighting for his life.
Just wants to be left alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a note about that sort of, I'm glad you brought that up.
Same.
Because one of the notes I had, Ben, was him and Teasel, they both make a war out of it, was what I was picking up as I was watching it last night. Like, in the sense that, like, Rambo starts having flashbacks, obviously, to POW experiences and goes into survival mode, but also combat mode. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's both. And I feel like the distinction's important because, he just starts going through the motions, man, of waging war on this guy and then subsequently pretty much everybody in the region. And Teasel just won't let it go from minute 2. And so he's determined to take this guy down. That was my thought.
Yeah.
Was that they both just kind of made this war, What do you think?
Definitely. But I mean, I think, look, Teasel's just a prick, clearly he's just a prick. He didn't like the look of, Rambo. He didn't want him in his town. And, he didn't listen. So he decided he was going to give him a super hard time.
Yeah.
I think in Rambo's case, it's like, it's pretty clear, like everything that happens to him in the police station, they fucking shower him with a fire hose, and they're like, they're trying to get him to comply with all these different things, and then they want to shave him, and he starts having all these flashbacks about being a prisoner of war. So, I think that like that post-traumatic stress disorder is what motivates Rambo to escape. It's like he just cannot handle being in captivity. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not the same thing as like Teasel just being like a power mad, local cop piece of shit, So yeah, they both escalate it for certain, but I feel like, the worst that would have happened if Teasel had just let it go is, Rambo would have stayed in the woods, like hunting and, hiding in that cave.
Yeah.
It's not like he would have been like out killing hunters and stuff, like because, they're getting too close to his turf or whatever. Like that wouldn't have happened. He would have just like, stayed out there in survival mode, or maybe eventually moved on to another town or something.
Yeah, almost certainly he would have just kept going at some stage, regrouped for a little while, and then found his way out of that valley or whatever. And, these soldiers can move, 50 plus miles in a 24-hour period via like in rough terrain, like they're trained for that type of thing, so.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to like come back to where you just left it, but I do want to propose that, would it be outrageous to say that they could have de-escalated the whole thing and the movie could have been avoided altogether had they just sprinkled him with powdered sugar after spraying him with the hose?
The lice hate the sugar.
It's delicious.
It's delicious. Oh, man. I was tempted to throw in a Super Troopers reference earlier, but
I mean, I just had to take the opportunity.
Hey, man, you know what? We're all about levity here, Chad. So anytime you want to, inject some levity, I think we've learned from our darker episodes. They were so depressing that the three of us all needed therapy at the end of the episode, that we need to have that levity in there.
That's it.
So good on you, mate.
Yeah, this movie definitely has the tendency to be dark. So,
yeah, and by tendency, Jarhigo means the whole thing, all 93 minutes.
Circling back, though, to the Teasel versus Rambo thing, one of my nuggets that is really more appropriate for right now is Teasel in his office behind his desk has a case with 3 medals in it, like military medals, and it implies that
nice eye.
Well, I didn't find. I read this. I didn't see it, but he's got a Silver Star, a Purple Heart, and a Distinguished Service Cross. And so evidently, it's like showing that he's a really decorated Korean war hero, and the subtext of the book is different war tactics from different wars. And so, like through that lens, I actually don't really like the interaction between those two characters. I much prefer Teasel's just a prick and doesn't understand what Rambo has gone through, the way that they treated it in the film a lot more, and the escalation because they're both war heroes thing, I think is just like, I'm glad they kind of changed that around, if that makes sense.
Yes. My comment on that would be, it would have been interesting to see an alternate with that motivation. I'm glad that they went with it the way that they did, but I could very easily see if you just added in almost one small, simple scene explaining that he was in Korea, blah, 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 it would have been interesting. I think it was more interesting to keep the conflict from a social point of view and more focused on Vietnam rather than the difference between two soldiers and fighting tactics. But that's an interesting little positation there.
Yeah, they don't mention anything, but you can see in I keep wanting to say Cheezel.
Hey, Mr. Cheezel.
In Teasel's office, there's you can see a few medals. You can see like a Purple Heart and a couple other medals, but I'm pretty sure nothing else is explained there.
No, I think it's from the books, but I've never read the book. So.
Books.
Well, it's odd. It's almost like they were planning on including it by putting that in his office, but which I thought was weird. I mean, you would think a fellow soldier would have a hell of a lot more empathy, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Or at least understanding that he's been through some shit and leave him alone, regardless of empathy. Like, just fucking...
Yeah.
Whatever.
At the very least, yeah. At the very least.
But it's interesting in terms of you saying, like, you know, why have the medals there if they didn't go there? Because there was that interview with Sly on Howard Stern that I shared a video with, where he was just saying, like, the first cut of the movie he fucking hated so much that he tried to buy the negatives to burn them. I'm not sure if you guys watched the video or not, but
I watched it like 3 times, actually.
yeah, cool.
Not only that, I cannot talk about this film without referencing that story. It's that important.
Yeah. Well, I think
my opinion. But anyway, go ahead.
My 2 cents on that one is, like, having not read the book and having not seen the original cut, which no one's really seen, regardless of whether it was good or bad, in the books, evidently Rambo is like a hardcore, cold-blooded killer and fucking kills everybody. So it's a very, very different story in the sense that, like, in the film, he's trying not to kill people and just trying to be left alone and get out of this thing. Like, you know,
and doesn't kill anybody in this movie.
Exactly. The body count of the whole fucking movie is 1. It's Galt who falls out of the helicopter, you know? So
right.
Right.
So,
and
you know,
that's an accident.
Exactly. Like, but if you imagine the whole movie as him just murdering people, like, it's a totally different movie, you know? So
oh my God, no doubt.
It's I'm glad that they didn't go all the way with the original book story. And maybe this is a great example of elevating the source material, but the Howard Stern interview was quite interesting.
The Howard Stern interview was I've never heard that. And it's funny. I did some reading on Wiki last night about this, and that is actually referenced in the Wikipedia article, was that story. In short, not the way he explained it. You know, one of the differences being, like, in the Wiki article, they were like, Stallone was approached with the script. And when you hear him tell it in the Stern interview, he's like, dude, they went through everybody in Hollywood, including Zippy the Monkey. Then they were like, oh, let's see if Sly wants to do it. You know, like, nobody wanted to do the movie.
Right. I kind of feel like that's definitely, like, your memory changes over time kind of thing.
Well, sure.
But who knows?
you know, it's, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, the main thing about the point that he made in the Stern interview is, and this is something I've been thinking about over the last week or two. You know, we've done a couple of Arnold films. We've done now a lot of Sly films. You know, there are 2 action icons of the 80s. And that, doing what he did. So just for the folks at home that don't know, what happened was the original cut of the film was 3 to 3.5 hours long. Stallone and his manager saw it, and they thought it was terrible. It would kill his career. They were retching in the alleyway next to the movie theater. They wanted to buy the negatives and burn them. And then his idea was to cut out nearly all of his dialogue. And as he explains it in the interview, make it more like a Greek chorus thing where the people surrounding him in the story are doing the revealing about him. And that makes him more of a kind of man of few words, and really, well, firstly, cuts the film from 3 hours down to 93 minutes. And then secondly, just turns it into an incredible film, because we don't need to see, you know, him speaking. So much information about Rambo is revealed in exactly that way by other people, and his actions speak very loudly because of that, because of his, you know, lack of dialogue. And I really think that that's brilliant. And I also think that it really shows, I've mentioned this in other episodes, like, as weird as Over the Top was, you know, Sly is a creative person. He's an actor, he's a writer, he's a director, and he's really good. And I feel like the action movies that he made that were popular, I said this before, I'll say it again, sort of overshadow, like, the real talent that's there sometimes. And, like, that was his idea, and that made this movie a brilliant film. Like, this is an excellent movie. So for me, when I heard that Stern interview, it was a total game changer. Like it just made me love the movie even more and him even more. I was like, wow, that is really awesome. Like seeing the first cut and realizing that it would just be a disaster and a potential career killer, and then saying, let's just take all my dialogue out and see what happens. Like that's just,
how can we fix this?
yeah, it's so smart. I just love it. And I think he's great like that, you know? I did a little more reading on him and, you know, writing Rocky and that whole thing. Like he's a real creative force. And this is sort of one of my other notes was because I was thinking about, you know, Stallone versus Schwarzenegger. And it's like, you know, Arnold is great, but Arnold is really a bodybuilder that wanted to become a movie star. Stallone was always an actor first and a creator first. You know, then, you know, as we went through the 80s and he did more action movies, he got more kind of pumped up. But, you know, that's sort of the difference between the two of them, man. Not taking anything away from either of them, but Stallone is definitely like the true artist, I think, out of the pair. And, you know, just in terms of like, you know, bodybuilding and muscles and action movies, like when you watch this movie, like Stallone is really pretty lean in this movie, man. He's not like, you know, huge like he is in a lot of his, you know, subsequent films. So I don't know. It was just an interesting couple of things that were banging around in my head as I was going through all this material.
I wonder what that original version is like.
Oh my God, I would love to see it.
You know, I mean, the results of what they did turned out good, but I just wonder what the previous version was like. Like, I just wonder if, you know, like Sly was just off his game and he was hating his performance, or if there was just way too much, you know, shitty dialogue or, you know, like bad writing, or what the story was. But I'd be curious to see what that was, or what it was that was so sickening about it.
Yeah. At one stage in the interview, I'll link to it in the show notes. It's only like 5 minutes long, but at one stage, Howard Stern's like, "Give me an example," and he's like, "Oh, you know when I'm not going to do a slide, but he's like, you know when he's walking down the road in the beginning, and Teasel stops and says, 'What are you doing?' He says, 'Have you seen Easy Rider? Well, I'm Easy Walker. I'm walking.'" It's just like cringeworthy writing and stuff. It's just like, all right,
okay, yeah, all right.
I'm glad you cut that shit out.
And the whole thing with the owl too. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like, yeah, like the scene in the film where he kills a pig and eats a pig was in the taken from the book. It was an owl. And so what did he say in the interview? I can't remember, Kev.
Well, I don't know if they switched it to the pig, but he just said that he was always pontificating in the original cut. You know,
like talking to himself,
saying,
and stuff.
Yeah, just talking all the time, and like he says that he sees a mouse get snatched up by an owl, and he says something to the effect of, "I'm gonna kill you, you mouse-eating motherfucker," or, you know, something like that.
Yeah, just really weird shit.
He was like, "This is just it's too much," and I think. And I think that kind of brutal. I mean, it's funny, but it's also like taking the film. I mean, this is the brilliance of Stallone. You know, is kind of what I was saying, is that taking all of that out of there, that brutality and all of that stuff, he totally switched the focus of the story. You know, that was originated in the book to, you know, the man and the emotion, and it's what really makes it brilliant and elevates it, you know. And I can't stress enough how brilliant I think that is.
To circle back to, we were kind of talking about the Teasel versus Rambo thing early days when they're in the police station and stuff. And one of the interesting thoughts that came to mind quite early in the film for me was the sunk cost fallacy, and just how, like, it was a great example because these cops, like, obviously want to get Rambo for busting out after they, you know, beat him up and stuff. But, like, it gets to a point where you're just like, we're in way over our fucking heads. We should probably just walk away. But they're just like, nah, we're going to fucking keep going.
Yeah, especially Teasel.
Yeah, Teasel's very Ahab.
Yeah, exactly.
And for whatever reason, Rambo is his white whale. Yeah,
wow, I never thought of that.
I don't know why he hates him so much and why he wants to go after him so bad. You know, I know who's the deputy that falls out of the helicopter?
Art Galt.
Galt. So apparently he and Galt were good buddies or whatever, but, you know, that seems to be the only motivating factor for going after him. And the dude fell out of the helicopter because the fucking helicopter, like, you know, the pilot, like, flinched when, you know, Rambo threw a rock at it. Like, it wasn't like a direct kill.
I think that the Galt thing, Ben, was pouring a giant 50-gallon drum of gasoline on a fire that was already there. You know, like that's what just took it to the stratosphere for Teasel.
Yeah.
I kind of got like the power trip not in my town bullshit was the source of the fire. That was kind of my take on it.
Source, yeah. I'm saying the Galt incident just,
Yeah,
was like
flamed it
pouring
up,
a big
yeah.
drum of gas on it.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's that, it's like Teasel is not used to getting any pushback at all. So, as soon as someone has any kind of like different agenda than doing exactly what he prescribes, it's like, oh, no, 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 that'll never do, And that, yeah, I guess that is what sort of starts the brush fire, as it were, and just escalates.
Yeah. It's interesting how quickly it escalates too. I thought that running into the woods and some of the rookie cops not being overly stoked about what was happening, and then the old guys being like, nah, we'll get him. Like that was interesting and kind of as expected, but like the helicopter and the ravine kind of stuff was super like, oh shit, this is like quite a sequence here, and it really kicked it off. I think saying that that's when the barrel of fuel got poured onto the fire is a great descriptor, because that was a pretty intense scene, man. Like without bringing the actual movie cliffhanger into this, like that was pretty powerful. Like him hanging off the side of a cliff and fucking a helicopter and the dude with a rifle, and the fact that it wasn't all the cops trying to kill him, but it was just the one dude, Galt, not listening to orders and just fucking shooting anyways. Like it really kind of set the tone quite firmly and quite quickly.
Well, there's a ton going on in that scene. Like it is intense.
When he lets go and like drops down through all those trees, and then he like tears his arm open on that one branch, like I got like the heebie-jeebies.
Same.
I swear I have had a similar injury when I was like a little kid running around playing war. Not that I jumped off a cliff or anything, but somehow I got like a pretty good gash from getting poked by like a stick.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's just like I was like, oh, I could feel that like pain again, like.
That practical effect of him bleeding and stitching himself up was really impressive as well.
It was, because you could see the blood kind of
heartbeat pouring out,
running out as he was sewing his arm up. Yeah, I totally made a mental note about that.
Yeah. Did you guys happen upon the info? I think it might have been there's a commentary that I didn't have time to listen to, but there were a couple nuggets from it. One was that when Sly did that falling through the tree stunt, he actually cracked a rib on that bottom branch, and so he's like, I didn't have to act that scream at the end.
No, you could see it. It's actually before he hits the arm, he hits his rib, and it's like very pronounced. Like you see him like
eat shit,
really react to it. Yeah, because you can tell. Like I didn't know that, Chad, but when I watched it, I was like, oh man, he just broke his rib right there. Not for real. I didn't know he did it for real, but I was like that. I thought he was sort of simulating that, acting as it were. But that's an interesting little tidbit.
That's one way to get a good performance out of Sly.
That's it. Break some ribs.
Throw him off a cliff, man. Hey. No, there's a lot going on in that scene. It is the sort of the turning point where it goes from like, okay, you're just this grubby dude, whatever, to it's World War III. He's climbing down the cliff. Galt is in the helicopter. The rest of the gang is up on the cliff. He jumps. And I mean, it is really a really high distance, like a very deep gorge. I mean, you really can see it when he jumps and the camera pulls back, and you just see, I mean, he's hanging in the air for like ever. And then he starts hitting the tree branches, like it's intense, man. It's really intense.
At first, being like my first viewing, I thought they were going to go with the Western trope of him jumping and like magically landing in the really, really, really deep river.
Yeah.
And so I liked how it went to him trying to climb down and then getting kind of stuck. And then it's like 4 or more shots before he decides to jump. He's like, either I'm jumping or I'm fucking getting shot. And so like it really set the stakes quite well as well.
Oh, absolutely, man. And you really get to see you really get to see what a bastard Galt is right there. Because he's about to
seeing red for sure.
Yeah, he's about to line it up for the kill shot. And it's funny and it's really dark at the same time. The way he delivers the last line is he turns to the helicopter pilot and he's like, if you don't keep this thing steady, I swear to God. And that's all he says. It's like, I mean, the look in his eye is like, he's going to turn the rifle and shoot the pilot in the face, man. You know what I mean?
It's just like, yeah, that good luck landing the helicopter there, Galt.
Yeah. It's scary, man.
Mm.
Yeah, Jack Starrett, man.
But that really sets the scene. Like,
Yes.
Galt falls out after Stallone throws the rock. And, like, I don't want to go super play-by-play, but, like, I think this one scene in particular is really interesting in the sense that, like, there's a lot going on, and then it ends with him trying to surrender with the other cops up at the top of the cliff, you know, just being like, I don't want to fucking, you know, this doesn't need to be a thing. Like, let me just fucking walk away, guys. And it's just interesting how Teasel, at that moment, kind of sunk cost. He's just like, nah, I'm going to get this fucker. It's like, dude, you got one of your dudes at the bottom of a ravine dead. Like, that's a big fucking deal. You know, one of your colleagues is dead. Like, you would think it would have them, you know, being like, oh shit, we need to call in for reinforcements, or we need help, or whatever. But he's just like, nah, we're gonna go into full hunting mode. What's the worst that could happen?
Well, that was sort of the interesting thing, because the information about Rambo that they searched for comes back as they're at the bottom of the gorge and they're looking at Galt's body, and Teasel is just like enraged, man. And then, you know, that's the point where you see the kind of the half, at least, you know, a couple of the deputies are like, you know, wait a minute, dude. Like, I don't know, man. You know, and Caruso, David Caruso, this is one of his first movies.
Yeah.
He's the one that's like, I knew there was something about that guy.
That line, man.
I want to be his buddy. Like, I think if it was up to Mitch, that's Caruso's character, I think he would have run off and like hung out with Rambo in the woods, because he was super into him. I think he thought he was so cool.
Yeah, like, teach me, master.
Totally.
I want to learn your ways.
But at the same time, like, I think Mitch's reaction throughout the whole thing, including in the opening scene where they're trying to fingerprint him, like, Mitch sees that Rambo's being a pain in the ass, but also doesn't want to, like, break the rules and beat the guy up. And, like, he's the only one amongst the whole fucking bunch with any sort of sense of what the hell's actually going on. They just ignore him
decency.
Throughout.
Yeah. He's the one that's like, hey, you know, come on this way. Like, he's treating him like a human being. You know, that always jumped out at me about that particular character.
And yet he still goes along for the ride pretty much throughout.
Well, I mean, you know, he is a deputy in the sheriff's department, so it's like, I mean, they could have written his character in a different direction, but I don't think the character was large enough to warrant that. And plus, you know, it was sort of based off the book anyway.
Well, it's like job site mentality. He was the fucking new guy. It's like, just shut up and do what you're told, new guy.
Yeah, go get the coffee, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop trying to reinvent the wheel, rookie.
Sing it again, rookie biatch.
So going back to the beginning of the film for a second, when he walks to Del Marberry's house, right? You know, I always glossed over that part because I was like, I can't wait to see the action, man. You know, my little kid self, whatever. But now as an adult, like, I think the Delmar's mom scene is way more important. And I could even argue that they didn't give it enough in the film, because you could argue, and we've sort of touched on the flashbacks and all of that stuff was, you know, important for him kind of freaking out and, you know, running out of the police station and kind of starting this war. But, you know, if you notice the way Sly plays it in the beginning of the film, when he's talking to Delmar's mother, he's very calm. He's very, my words are escaping me here. Jump in if you can help me out at any point. He, you know, the way he's speaking to her, he's like, oh, you know, this is, I'm a friend of Delmar's and we were in the war together. Like, he's really excited to find his friend, you know,
like searching for a connection.
Exactly. And he's, I want to say in a good mood, but that's so not describes what I'm really trying to convey here. But like, the way he's speaking to her, you know, he's like, oh, you know, I got all this junk in my pocket, you know, I never find anything. He's like, I got a picture of Delmar here. And he's like, you know, and there's Danforth and that's Krakauer and there's Delmar in the back. He's so big we had to put him in the back. Otherwise, you know, he's talking like that. And, you know, when she tells him that the cancer got him and ate him alive, I started coming up with this thought that is the tipping point in the film. Like, this is the last guy in his unit, right? And like, I almost feel like when she tells him that he died of cancer, that was the tipping point that set the rest off, because he seemed not like super happy, like skipping down the road in the beginning of the movie, but like he was happier when he was going there to discover his friend. And then when he finds out that the guy is dead, it's like, that's the last guy in his unit that was alive. And now he's truly alone. And then when we see that, we cut to the next scene and he's walking down the road, like he looks like
He's lost.
like, yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly. So my thought and what I'm positing is that the Delmar scene, the reveal of him being eaten by cancer, is the tipping point in the film that sends him down that path. Not necessarily the flashbacks and the situation with Teasel and the situation in the police station. Like, that is only serving to pour more kerosene on the fire, as it were.
That is completely reasonable, I think. And, you know, the way Delmar's mother handles it, like, she's really cold towards him, you know, like one would think that, like, you know, you'd be happy to see like a friend of somebody that you lost or something along those lines. But she's just sort of like, you know, it takes him like an inordinate amount of time for, you know, like he's like trying to like put all these connections together to describe, you know, his relationship with Delmar. And, you know, like she's just like not saying anything, you know, until. So, you know, that says something there too. Like, you know, it's like she shares the attitude about the war and, you know, sort of blaming the people that were fighting the war instead of the people who actually started it, kind of, you know, scenario that was going on then.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that was often a sentiment of the black community back then, was that it was a white man's war. And, you know, that's certainly referenced in a number of Vietnam films. So that was sort of where I thought she was coming from, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, really, I was just saying that it was perpetuating the sentiment that, you know, people were blaming the people that, you know, like people might have protested wars since then, but they typically don't like go after the veterans of the wars. You know what I mean? They're not going after the fighters. And in Vietnam, people were actually going after the poor soldiers that were fighting in the war, you know, despite the fact that they had nothing to do with starting it. So that was more what I was referring to. But I mean, I'm sure what you said also was a factor, you know.
I was kind of confused by that scene at first, just because like it's the opening scene, and so you kind of don't really know where the story's going. And so I hadn't really thought about it, but, you know, my impression, similar to yours, Ben, is like I just kind of got the like, she's just like, fuck you. It's like, fuck the man, you know, fuck the government for taking my son away from me, and fuck you for the part you played, Rambo, kind of thing. Where like she was lashing out and he just happened to catch some splash damage of just lashing out with the fact that her baby's taken away.
Yeah.
As opposed to anything, you know, maybe a little bit more political. But one of the things that I really enjoyed about that scene was Sly fumbling through his words and saying like, oh, he was so big we had to put him at the back, was like a great setup for her being like, the cancer ate him away, I could pick him up off the bed, he was so frail.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow.
You start with the like, oh, he's this big hulking dude, and then she's just like, he was nothing, and it just so quickly turns your perception of him, and it immediately makes it crystal clear just how much suffering happened. And so I really enjoyed that bit of writing.
Yeah, I did too, and I think that's why I sort of threw in that I think they could have made that scene a little bit more somehow to give it a little more punch, maybe. Because I really think the more I think about it, the more I think that is the tipping point in the film.
Yeah.
Which I like because it's right in the beginning.
It's really well done, but yeah, it's almost as if you would miss the importance of the scene if you just weren't, you know, looking at it with the right eyes.
Yeah.
It's a good point. I think, you know, when you said that it should have been expanded, Kev, I immediately shrugged, and that's not the best thing to do in a podcast because nobody saw me shrug, but
no, we didn't, Chad. That's so crazy. I didn't see that.
But I kind of like that it isn't more thoroughly explained. I don't think you were saying that it should have been over explained by any means, but like,
no,
I kind of think that you know, whether you pick up on it or not isn't critical, because if you appreciate the film, you're probably going to watch it more than once, and the fact that you pick it up later is a nice additional contextual layer, I guess.
It's almost like an Easter egg in plain sight.
Yeah, in a way. I do really resonate with what you were saying, though, with it being the catalyst for or the tipping point, because it really sets him up to be lost. And in the first interaction with Teasel, where, if I remember correctly, he's like, "Where are you going?" And Rambo's just like, "I don't know." And so like it further cements that feeling of being lost. And Teasel pushes him, and he's just like, "I don't know, I'm going to fucking Seattle." You know, like he doesn't care where he's going. You kind of get the feeling that he like walked away from his buddy's house and just like kept walking, Forrest Gump style. You know what I mean?
Because he's lost. Exactly, man. Like you said.
In the background, they were playing.
Exactly.
Dr. David Banner. Dr. John Rambo.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Wow, there's a lot going on right there, Ben. Dr. Rambo, I think now would be a good time for you to get angry. That's my secret, Cap. I'm always angry. Right? Feeling me? Or did I just die a horrible death, man?
No, I am right with you, man.
No, you're not dead, dude. I'm just thinking about how cool it would be for Sly to be the Hulk.
Sly is Dr. John Rambo, the Hulk. I don't need to explain it.
There are a lot of parallels there, man. Banner shows up in a town, like, with the best of intentions, and chaos always ensues. And the next thing you know, he's walking away from to the next town with his duffel bag, all forlorn.
I know, it's really scary when you have a report. Actually, I feel like the locus of the TV show, just to digress for a quick second, was that he always had a reporter chasing him. It's like,
yes.
Is this the Lou Ferrigno Hulk?
I don't know why it was never the military. It was always, a reporter.
Right.
It's like, ooh, I got to watch out. There's reporters around. Sorry.
They've got a scoop and they're hot on my trail.
I gotta. Exactly.
No, I mean, it's just, it's kind of unbelievable the amount of like parallels there are between the Lou Ferrigno Hulk series and this movie.
I'm with you, man. There's a lot of similarities there. Okay, so Chad, you have often commented on the weirdness of either my notes or the things that I notice in these various films TV shows that we talk about. And this is right up that alley. I actually wrote this as a note. I was watching Dennehy on screen and I'm like, Dennehy is in reasonably good shape in this movie still. He seemed to gain a little more weight in his later years, certainly in Tommy Boy, but like I was like, he's in pretty good shape in this movie, which is good because, he's chasing John Rambo through the woods, I thought that could be a
Noted.
Noted. Kev's weirder comments.
This is the opening to our Brian Dennehy fat shaming segment. See, by the time he got to Cocoon, he was a total walrus. I mean,
Cuckoo. The reason, Kev, that I so enjoy those random anecdotes is that
lay it on me, dude.
It's always something that's like, I suppose the recipe is the movie is the fucking worst or weirdest or most nonsensical movie ever. And then the thing that you get obsessed on is something that's like completely throwaway and yet you're convinced is the reason the movie fell over as being implausible. It's like bringing up a nugget about Demolition Man and you're like, yeah, but this one thing with Sylvester Stallone doing this one weird, he eats a rat burger and he drinks a beer. Where did the beer come from? It's like, that's not the most implausible part of the movie, bro.
And if you look, you can see there's a box of Kleenex in the background.
Exactly. that right there is that's so me.
But it's like, Dennehy was fit enough that it's pretty plausible he would have been able to keep up jogging through the woods. So I buy it. Like, okay, dude. Meanwhile, 75 National Guard soldiers show up 8 minutes after a guy falls out of a helicopter. Like, completely plausible.
Exactly right.
In all fairness, Dennehy does look pretty good in this
He
movie.
looks fantastic in this movie.
He looks really good.
Yeah,
man.
he looks better than he did in FX, which came out right around this time. Let's see. Rambo was 82. FX was 86. So that's my lead in for that weird comment. That weird comment about Dennehy's fitness. That is my lead into talking about the cast. Let's start with Dennehy. I know Jarhigo has a very interesting.
That was the tightest transition in show history. I hereby donate my segue to you because that was a legendary segue.
I'm trying to recover and get away from that, and you're pulling me back into the drain, dude. That's great. Hey,
terrific.
I'm in the drain with a red balloon.
I love that we've given no commentary on Dennehy's performance in this film.
It's just that he's looking trim.
Anything relevant. Anything relevant.
Hey, you look like a 36 waist in that way. It was pretty good. He was looking pretty trim.
As always, folks, when we talk about the cast of these films, we're going to start with their fitness first.
Yeah. Didn't really have the fupa that he had later on in life.
Oh, my God.
So the cast.
Holy shit.
The cast.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I love when you do this, Jack, because then you start going. Okay. The cast. And the second one of us says something, you're gonna drop some other little comedy grenade in there that's gonna derail us again. Then you're gonna start going, dude. Can we get back on track?
Come on.
The show is broken. It's like when you're like, all right, shh, be quiet. And then everybody starts laughing again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We have broken Dennehy. Now I am going to talk about how great Dennehy is. Jarhigo has a special sort of interesting little connection to Dennehy.
A denecdote, if you will.
Yes. Dennehy was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and he died in New Haven, Connecticut. I didn't know that he was a Connecticut boy, so that's interesting to me.
Indeed, he is.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I just thought, based on your anecdote that you've shared with me in the past, that he just sort of had a home in the area there. You want to recount that little tale, or?
So yeah, there used to be Dennehy sightings at one of the local supermarkets, and a friend recounted a tale to me that he was they used to have the you used to be able to grind your. I guess maybe you still can. I don't know, but they used to have a coffee grinding machine, and my buddy got up, grabbed a bag and walked around the corner, bag of beans, and walked around the corner, and there's Dennehy fucking grinding up coffee, and he doesn't say anything, and Dennehy just looks at him and goes, "This is really good coffee."
It totally sounds like a Japanese coffee commercial in a way.
I love it, man. I love that story.
So it's like, dude, I saw Dennehy at the supermarket again.
Everybody's
talk to me.
Everybody's talking about it.
We drank the same beans.
We drink the same coffee.
It's really good coffee.
Anyway, so Dennehy, now that we've done enough riffing on Dennehy.
Wait, you still haven't talked about him in the movie other than just to say he's...
Other than he likes coffee and he was a fat fuck.
All right, I'm trying to get there. Who better to play Teasel? Dennehy. I cannot imagine anybody else in this role. I'm sure there are other actors that could have played it, but he is perfect.
He was pretty perfect.
I can't think of another role where Dennehy is quite such a prick.
No.
And he does a really good job.
He's got such a prick face.
But he does have kind of a pricky face. And he's, I don't know.
It's true, though. He's got a prick face.
You freaking bastard.
You prick face, fat bastard, coffee drinking motherfucker. You could say that he is a prickish face in the sense of the character. He did a good job of playing a prick. I'll tell you that much.
Well, yeah, he did.
He does an excellent job of playing a prick. Yeah.
Yes, he did. And I was really trying to make more of a commentary on the man himself and his skill as an actor. Like, I love Brian Dennehy, and I was very sad when I found out that he passed away. And he's been in some really great films that I love, and I've enjoyed him in all of them. He has a very particular voice and look to him. He like in Tommy Boy, he was very jolly and kind of jovial and great in that way, but he can very quickly be sort of like Teasel, you know what I mean? And that's what I like about him. He's really cool like that. And I really enjoyed the 80s film FX, which stars Australian homeboy Brian Brown and Dennehy.
Yeah, Dennehy's great, man. He's got some range.
Oh, seriously, man.
I'm trying to keep my coffee in my mouth. No, I was going to say something. Yeah, he's got a really great range of weights on the scale or something along those lines. Oh. But I didn't say that.
What do you think about Dennehy, Chad, or did you leave?
I'm here. The cast for me on this one is interesting because I recognize so many of the people, but couldn't place them. And so I looked up Dennehy afterwards and saw the Tommy Boy thing, and I'm aware of FX, but like so often with movies, I'll recognize the person and then try and figure out what it is. And IMDb will always be like, these are the movies they're most known for. And I'm like, I don't know what any of those are. And it's always some like really weird movie that I'm like, oh yeah, he was such and such in, this random obscure film. And I couldn't really place him other than Tommy Boy. So, I loved him. I thought he was fucking great. And I recognized the hell out of him. And I swear I've seen him in a million things, but I couldn't recognize almost any of the stuff in IMDb.
He's he was a big theater actor too, man.
Yeah. Yes, I'm
Okay.
You know how up I am on my theater.
Theater.
Yes, of course. All right, let's move away from Dennehy since the only other thing I want. Well, whatever. I'll say that for the next section.
No, move back to Dennehy. All right, let's move away from Dennehy, except for this one. Yeah.
Well, the thing about Dennehy is there's a lot to cover there.
There's a lot of Dennehy.
Well, that guy's been in a zillion productions, man. I mean, stage and screen. Oh, I see what you're saying. I was gonna. Well, let's see. Okay. Here's something that I wanted to talk about this movie. Don't have to be crazy long, but I mentioned before how the action is really there to accentuate the emotional story that's going on, right? And one of the things I really enjoyed about the action and like the driving scenes in particular with the vehicles, like it's all very grounded in reality. Like I really enjoyed how it was, when they're doing like the motorcycle chase and the various police car chases and all that sort of thing. It's all very real the way that it works. You know what I mean? In the sense that like when Rambo jumps off that little sort of rise off the road down into that farm field, and Dennehy's cruiser does the same thing. Like they show the cruiser getting sort of a little bent and crunched, and like, it reacts how it would react, like a car of that size and bulk sort of going off a little bit of a jump like that and landing in like a muddy field. You know what I mean? And like later on when you see the state police cruiser chasing him in the truck, he goes around a gravelly corner and he almost wipes out into the woods. I really enjoyed that level of sort of reality in this film. Like it wasn't pumped up.
Yeah, totally. There was an interesting bit that I learned about the scene where Mr. Cheezel rolls his car, when Rambo is riding the bike up the wall or whatever, or up the rocks. Yeah, it turns out that the stunt driver rolled the car by accident, and the director was so stoked that he put Cheezel in the thing and shot it as if it happened in the film. So it was like an unintentional moment, which I thought was like exactly to your point of how realistic it was.
Yeah, very much so. I really, really enjoyed that about this film. Even in the beginning of the motorcycle chase, when they get to that little bridge, and sometimes like with a bridge over a river or train tracks, you'll get that sort of little hump, that you can get some kind of air if you were going fast enough. And like the motorcycle goes flying over it, and then the police cruiser does too. And it's it's not so pumped up where they do like, 3 different takes from 3 different angles. Like you see the police car land and you can see that the police car is like physically damaged and stressed out from taking the jump. It's not like, this huge overblown thing. And all of the chase scenes and the vehicle scenes are like that, which I really enjoyed,
Yeah, same. The stunt car jumping the train tracks got so much air on the first take that the stunt guy broke his back and like fell out of the car and was
Whoa.
unable to walk.
Are you for real?
Yeah, totally. And I think that the guy recovered, but they were like, okay, let's shoot it again with less cowbell. And then the second take was what they used in the film. But the fucking poor bastard broke his back.
And I like your use of the cowbell reference right there. That was nice.
Thank you. I kind of liked the ham-fistedness of Rambo stealing an army truck and like driving at the back of an army train, and there's like cop cars just like sirens blaring where he's got nowhere to go. Like it's not a high-speed chase, it's like a white Bronco low-speed chase. But it was quite cool.
Wait, what do you mean? Like what? You're saying when he's got the M60 in the army truck?
Yeah, like the first half of the chase, the first half of him, being noticed in the army truck is he stays on the back of the army kind of convoy and doesn't really like get off that convoy for a while. So like I just thought it was I enjoyed it, even though it was a bit ham-fisted that he like just keeps going on the convoy for a while, and the cops right behind him just Nina. He's just like, yeah, whatever, cops behind me, but I'm just gonna stay on the convoy for a while, and then eventually peels off.
You're saying it was like kind of the slow chase there, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, for a bit there, anyways.
Like on the beginning in the dirt road it was, and then when they get out onto the pavement, like that's when it gets pretty sick, and again very realistic.
Yeah,
man.
They start smacking into each other.
Exactly. So, like a police cruiser is never going to do anything against a truck like that. Like that truck is, those things are built like rocks, man, and it's no surprise, that the thing blasts through the state police barricade on the road. And again, you see the realism of it as well. Like the truck does not just sort of smoothly jump the police cars. Like he plows through them, and you can see a couple of points where the truck almost completely tips over on its side, and I really enjoyed that level of like, reality, realism. It was just fantastic. But I know what you mean about that part, Chad. It was funny. Like it was like, kind of like the steamroller thing in Austin Powers, he's like,
yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? Like, we're going to get you. He's like, okay, I'm getting away, like,
yeah,
I'm going to go 6 miles an hour.
It's Ken. He's coming to kill me. Yeah, the slow chasing was definitely funny. What got me on the last watching was, he goes in and he like hijacks the driver with the knife, and he's like, drive, and then he just long enough to ask like what's in the back, and then he tells the guy to jump out. Like that just kind of always struck me as funny. It's like, all right, drive. What's in the back? Okay, M60. Good. All right, you gotta get out now.
Yeah, that's true, man. That was really weird. Like he should have just kept the guy driving the truck, or could have,
right? Because he doesn't get found out until the cop like picks up the dude on the side of the road later. Yeah, so
well, it's not like the guy. It's not like it's Cathcart Robert A. had a cell phone. He's like texting while Rambo is like holding the knife to his throat, driving down the road. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was odd.
We're dangerously close to another small anecdote that Kev gets hung up on in the movie being implausible.
Sorry. All right. You don't seem to realize you're dealing with an expert in movies, cast members, crew. And that means, folks, that now it's time to talk about Colonel Trautman.
Can I just open with I thought it was the same actor that played the same role in Commando because I was only using half my brain, but if it were the same actor from the same role, I would have thought it was fantastic.
Yes, that would have been fantastic. That would have been crazy, actually. But I could see why you would make that connection. There's very similar.
Because it's such a tropey character.
Well, Commando is kind of more like Rambo, First Blood Part 2.
Sure.
Even though the two films have very little connection. And I mean, Krenna plays Troutman in every movie except I think only the first 3 actually.
Yeah.
Well, it had to be. He passed away in 2003. R.I.P. You were awesome. I remember talk about a '80s Richie D-bag. He played a great one in Summer Rental with John Candy. It was a pretty funny movie.
Don't know that one.
Nobody does because it's very silent out there in EVD land.
I'm having a hard time believing that there's a Candy movie I haven't seen, but that might be one.
Yeah, you know what else was great was that he was in Hot Shots Part 2
Yes, that was great.
because that's spoofing those movies. You know, those movies are really good, man. I love how they got Martin Sheen for that one little cameo, and I can't remember if it was
On
the
the
first one or
riverboat?
the second one.
Yeah.
I loved you in Wall Street. That was great. Anyway, so Krenna, I don't. This guy's amazing. He was like he came in at the last minute too, and they got so many other people they were trying to get to play this role, like Lee Marvin and then Kirk Douglas as well. But yeah, ultimately they gave it to Krenna, and it ended up becoming like one of his like greatest roles and greatest performances.
It's pretty legendary.
Totally.
So yeah, Krenna and Troutman. I really enjoyed the like the rivalry between Troutman and Teasel.
Totally.
I always kind of thought it was funny that like like just some local sheriff or whatever is like we're presuming Troutman is there like sort of on well, I guess he's not there on official business, is he? He's just there like for his own.
Yeah, no, it's official. He says the
official?
army sent me down here because they thought I could help.
Okay, right. So, it's that typical, like, the local cop, like, telling the FBI to get off his doorstep or, that kind of relationship going on between those two. And there's some good stuff there.
Some really good stuff there. Like his sort of what I think as the most sort of famous speech from this movie is when Dennehy's just like, yeah, whatever, like how bad of a badass could this guy possibly be, And I mean, there's a lot of layers to Troutman. I mean, don't get me wrong. And there's a lot going on, a really great dynamic between him and Rambo from the get-go. But, that speech is the best because like Teasel he doesn't want to let it go at all. And he's just like, yeah, we can do it. He's kind of like that kid, like my youngest child, he's always, I can do it. Like he's kind of like that, and then Troutman comes in with the, you don't seem to realize you're dealing with an expert with guns, knives, with his bare hands, a man who's been trained to ignore pain, to ignore weather, to live off the land, to eat things that would make a billy goat puke. In Vietnam, his job was to dispose of enemy personnel. To kill, period. Best Krenna ever. That and the body bags line. But
Yeah, the body bags line. Just like that was I made a mental note of that after I heard it. I was like, oh, that's a keeper.
He's so trope-tastic.
Sort of getting away from like the kind of the comedy of that and that little speech. Like it's not like it's like an overly complicated thing or like a complex relationship, but like, he's very much a father figure to Rambo. And I just love the way he tries to manage Teasel and manage Rambo throughout the course, the rest of the film. And, at the end, talking him down and just listening to Rambo break down, it's just such a powerful scene, man. And I just love, it's really unexpected. And I actually forgot about it, when Rambo kind of really, really just breaks down. And then he just reaches out for him, man, and just like puts his head on his chest. And like Troutman just slowly puts his other hand around and onto his back, and
yeah, the way that it starts, at least like my perception of it was like, Mr. Cheesel's all pissed off that his power is being questioned in the beginning of the movie and throughout, and then all of a sudden a bigger power comes in, like you said, Benny, with like the FBI kind of stuff, and it's almost like that whole tent scene is just him being like, no, I'm the power here, I'm the authority here, and this other guy's just like, dude, you don't know what you're fucking with, and the army told me to come in and sort this out. And then it culminates with what you said, Ben, with like the breakdown moment, but also like Rambo walks away and is like, taken away to Fort Bragg to, presumably get trained up and go and fucking do First Blood Part 2. You know, I know that's not how it goes in terms of the plot, but that's kind of what's implied a bit. The bigger power comes in and says, yeah, don't worry. Don't worry about what happened in your small town. We're going to take this weapon that we built and take him away. Thanks very much. See ya. I thought that was interesting too. Like it starts with a like a larger power comes in to kind of guide the situation to a good resolution, and then it ends with him as the father figure, you know, cradling Rambo who is broken down. So it's kind of an interesting kind of double barrel on that one.
Very much so. And I have now come up with another thing. So I'm going to posit this. If that is the case, would that make Troutman your grandfather?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Old Grampy Troutman.
Grampy Troutman.
I think he's a papaw.
Oh, Papa Troutman. Yeah, I'm down.
Henceforth, Krenna will be known as Papa Troutman.
And that's why I went to military school, is because my papa was a very decorated war veteran. So I went to military school.
Oh, my God. Wow.
And at that point, I moved away from Rambo, who was still lost and became a trucker because he got some experience in the army truck. So now he went off and became a trucker. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. He is definitely Pampa Troutman for sure.
You just tied together those two movies. One totally bizarre with arm wrestling and strange sexual things going on, and then this film, which is just excellent.
And very large bottles of cologne.
Yeah, you just tied them together perfectly.
Yeah, you're onto something there, man. He's definitely my pappy.
So Lincoln Hawk was John Rambo, and he was
but he
Vietnam
changed his
vet,
name.
and he lost everything. Hang on, stay with me here. He lost everything, and you know, at the end of the movie, Troutman comes in, diffuses the situation, and then you know, Rambo goes, changes his name, takes a new identity, gets a job driving trucks. And that's where all the weird tension of the military academy thing comes in. But he did that because your papa is really his grandfather, his real grandfather, or sort of surrogate grandfather.
No, his father,
if you will. The papa is Stallone's dad.
Yeah.
And Stallone is Michael's
my dad. My
exactly. Dad. Sorry, your dad. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's good.
There it is. That's really tight.
And it's the moment that he was driving the army truck was the first time he felt free ever since he got back from Nam. So that was kind of the and he spent so many days and nights in the woods that he didn't smell good. So he needed to smell good. So he started trucking Brute Cologne around.
Totally, Ben. But that's where he got his first taste for driving the open road, was in the truck. Go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
Also, Brute comes in a green bottle. You know, when he started driving the truck, he realized it was much less conspicuous than hiking around from town to town and trying to find odd jobs, and thus was able to escape from the reporters that had been chasing him around.
And
Exactly.
Ben just tied in Banner. I love it. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it.
That's it, guys.
It. Show's over. Talk about going out on a high note. That's it right there. So transitioning away from how awesome Richard Crenna as Colonel Troutman, I wanted to just briefly touch on the way this movie is shot. It's really well done, firstly, and we've talked about the score and we've talked about the action sequences and the acting and all of that stuff, and the cinematography of the film is really good too. And I really enjoyed actually how dark this movie was, or almost a better way to say it would be. I think if I'm getting this right, the director's name is Ted Kochev. He was not afraid to shoot in lower natural light, and it gave it a very real feel to it. So, like when the deputies, really throughout the whole film, but especially in the beginning when they first go into the woods after them, you know, it's very clearly that it's like, you know, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Like it's twilight time and the sun is going down.
The sun's going down.
And he doesn't use any annoying artificial lighting. It's tough to see them, but there's just enough light that you can see what everybody's doing. And I really applaud that he did that. And I thought it worked fantastically for the movie. And I wish more directors would be that bold. I mean, I'm sure there's other examples of it that I either don't know or I'm forgetting, but of films being shot like that. But I really enjoyed the way that he did this. And it really jumped out at me in this viewing. That's sort of the, as a side note, interesting thing about, I was telling my wife this last night about how, you know, you watch a movie like this when you're a kid and you're like, oh man, and it's action, it did. Now watching it as a grown man, it's like just a totally different take on this movie, which I really enjoyed as well. And you know, that bit about the cinematography really jumped out at me. And it's not just in the scene in the woods; it's really pretty much throughout the whole film that he does that. You know, he really relies on the natural light that is happening at the time. And he utilizes it beautifully, man. And I really just think it lends a level of authenticity to this film. And it really, for me, brought me into the story even more. Like you can really feel the dark and the cold and the wet and all the various different, you know, things that are going on because of him shooting it that way.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, shooting in the dark, it really brings an extra edge to the like gorgeous Pacific Northwest landscape that they're shooting the movie in. And you're right, it's beautifully shot, and being shot in those dark times of day, it's amazing how well he did, considering like, you know, you would watch like an 80s TV show and they would do their nighttime shots during the day and then just like use a fucking filter to try and make it look like the sky is dark, you know?
Exactly.
I fucking hate that. It's one of my pet peeves in cinema.
Yeah. Or when you like, they have like giant artificial lighting for nighttime scenes, and it's like you're supposed to like, you know, dismiss it as the moon or whatever. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm not. That's a toughie.
I get that it's a complicated thing to do, but at the same time, like you said, people that take the time to do it, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. When they put the work in, it's noticeable for sure.
The cave scene, I mean, that whole thing is just literally shot by, you know, Sly's torch.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's pretty amazing.
It's a really great point, dude. You're right. The rats, everything.
Yeah, and I mean, Sly had to be doing it right as well, you know, and he was actually holding a thing that was on fucking fire. So it's like, I remember watching it and thinking like, wow, they must have had to do this a few times to like get it right, you know?
Yeah, that's a big challenge right there for any actor.
Who's rats?
I also saw that Sly's claustrophobic, so that would have even been more difficult.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. I just randomly saw it. So, like, you know, kudos to the amount of effort that they put into all that stuff for sure.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just going to riff off of Ben here because I actually heard something that he said when you started talking, Chad.
Goes full with rats.
Ben, here's the tie-in. And Chad, you'll love this. That is where he got his love of rat burgers. That he professes in Demolition Man.
Absolutely.
Because he was eating them when he ran out of boar meat in the caves, bro.
That's it. Oh, I love it.
Holy shit.
I so love that.
Our best theories and tie-ins ever. I feel like I say that every week now.
Your comment about the dusk shooting brought to mind the helicopter sequence in the valley where, if I remember correctly, it was shot where the entire valley where Sly was at the bottom of was very much in the shadow of the cliff. And like, you know, if you're ever in a mountainous region and you're down in a valley, it's like really cold and like, like temperature cold, and the shadows like really sets the tone for the environment. And rather than having that shot with the sun blazing down at high noon, the fact that they shot it with a lot of shadow, I think very much lent itself to pulling you into the scene and pulling you into the feel of the film. Definitely.
Oh my God. Yeah, man. Absolutely.
I suppose I hadn't paid a lot of attention to the cinematography really in terms of like studying it, but it's a good point that you make for sure.
No, and look, I didn't either, man. And it was just, you know, as I was watching it yesterday, I was switching back and forth between my phone and, you know, a larger TV that I have downstairs. And like, I just noticed it. I was just like, man, this is really great the way he used this darkness. You know, it wasn't like I had thought about it before, spent a lot of time, you know, sort of thinking about it. It just kind of jumped out at me on this round of viewing.
Yeah, definitely. It's cool.
All right, so let's talk about the end of the movie.
Yeah, well, the third act, anyways. I'd love to chime in with.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
For me, I was on board right up until the gas station scene. Not to say the movie kind of went off the rails and I didn't like it anymore, but like I was super sympathetic to Stallone's character throughout. And then like, he's trying not to kill them. He confronts the deputies in the woods and says, I could have killed you all, just fucking leave me alone. But then he steals the truck, drives it into a gas station, blows the gas station up, and then just starts like wreaking havoc on this town. And for a minute I was just kind of like, wow, all right, that really escalated quickly. And it came good in the end, but it was, I was just like, oh, okay, this is where it goes to like normal actiony stuff,
You don't want to seem to accept the fact that you're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare.
This is true.
Because that is what's happening right there. And I totally get what you're saying. However, he is calculatingly, methodically going through that town and doing what he's doing. I used to think the same thing. And when I watched it last night, Chad, I was like, no, he's not just running around blowing shit up.
Yeah.
He's like, takes out the power, goes to the gun shop, lights a huge fire as a distraction. But the first distraction he makes is the gas station. So he runs. I mean, like, look, if they wanted to make it like a stupid action movie spectacle, he could have gone there, taken the nozzle off the gas tank, and then like lit it on fire and sprayed it, like in Point Break or something crazy like that. What'd you say?
The Zoolander, the gasoline fight accident.
Yeah, exactly. But instead, like he drove over them because he wanted them to start spraying gas everywhere, and then he lit them on fire. And it's funny because like when I was watching this last night, I was like, oh, I love how this movie and like the vehicle work is so grounded in reality, and then everything started exploding. So there was a little bit of like unrealisticness to, the gas station catches on fire, then the truck blows up, then all the cars in the gas station parking lot start blowing up. That was the only thing that I thought was a little bit unrealistic. But getting back on point, I believed that what he was doing going through the town was very methodically sort of taking control of the situation.
Yeah. I think you mentioned earlier that I think it was you, Kev, and I think it was when we were talking about the fighting in the basement of the cop station where he's just like, he entered into soldier mode. And I kind of feel like that's exactly what you're saying here. It's like he went from being in survival mode to being in like full-blown warrior mode. And, as you mentioned with the quote, he's a guerrilla warrior expert, guerrilla war expert.
In Vietnam, his job was to eliminate enemy personnel, to kill, period. So yeah, absolutely. That was that. He was in that guerrilla warfare sort of combat mode.
Well, maybe what I'm saying is that like it jarred me at first, but then as it kind of developed, I picked up on the like methodical distraction, knock out the power kind of thing.
Sort of
I was
the nuances of what was, yeah. The nuances of what was going on. No, but I mean, I'm saying I see what you're saying because I used to think the same thing as well. I was like, dude, this best part Rambo is blowing everything up, man. But it's like, it's really not what's going on.
Yeah. Really, the whole thing is kind of a set piece to get Mr. Cheezel to shit himself on the roof. He's just like,
totally.
You kind of get that Cheezel's like, I'm going to fucking get this guy. I'm going to go up on the roof. And then shit starts happening. He's like, I am way out of my depth.
Definitely, dude. And I didn't really get it. I mean, full disclosure, I didn't really get it until I got a visit from Papa, who said to me, you don't want to accept the fact that you're dealing with an expert with guns, knives.
You're going to have to pick which one of the 15 times you said that. It stays in the edit.
I think they should all stay in.
Oh, no, they're all staying in. Thank you. You've been outvoted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got totally psyched out when he broke into the sporting goods store.
What do you mean by that?
I thought we were going to get like a commando style, like,
Oh, lock and load.
Oh, like a gear up and like just
full on gear up. Yeah.
I thought it would have at least grabbed a couple of guns.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he's going to grab some ammo or something. No.
Or like the raw deal thing where he goes in and pushes the button and all of a sudden there's like rocket launchers and stuff.
No, that was Commando, bro.
That was Commando, yeah.
No, wasn't that the raw deal? Was it raw deal or?
No, Raw Deal was the hanger bag that had all the guns in it instead of suits. And
No, but which is the one where he goes in with the girl? Oh, that is Commando. I'm sorry. I'm an
Yeah,
idiot.
you're
I'm dead.
you're so dead.
I'm so dead.
you died like 3 times right there because you were asking the wrong people what movie that's from.
It was the tuna roll thing. I was like, what was that movie? Commando. No. What was the one? Commando.
The one when he had those tuna roll things.
What was the one with the girl?
Which movie was that?
What are those things called?
Was that what was the one with the little girl and the deer? Commando. No.
No, the one where he goes into the army surplus store with the woman and he presses the button.
Commando.
Yeah. No, tuna rolls.
See, I thought you were saying you got psyched out of that scene because you weren't digging it, but you wanted him to fully lock and load, huh?
I just couldn't remember what it had. It was clear that I hadn't seen it in very many years. So like, just when he breaks in, I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna do it. There's gonna be a Garrett scene. It's gonna be amazing, and then it didn't happen.
Right.
He just blows it up. It's just another distraction.
I mean, to be fair, he's not gonna top the M60. That was pretty legit.
No, I mean, and that is the Rambo's signature thing, isn't it? Is the one-handing an M60?
Yeah, which is really hard to do.
Mere mortals couldn't do that.
Probably impossible to do.
It probably is legit impossible.
Yeah.
Well, dude, that gun is like, I've held a handgun and I've held a semi-automatic rifle, and I could not, and I was much younger when I did it, I could not fathom how people could hold a gun up for any length of time and shoot accurately,
Yeah.
Well, the signature John Rambo move is to hold the M60 in your right hand and kind of tuck it under your elbow, and then you feed the chain ammunition in with your left hand.
Totally.
You got it all wrapped around your body in such a way that you're able to do that. I don't know how that works, but
indeed.
What would Troutman say?
You don't seem to want to accept the fact that you're dealing with an expert with guns. Sorry, no, I screwed it up. Jesus,
close enough.
You're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare. A man who's the best with guns, with knives, with his bare hands.
I want to go back and listen to all of the instances to see if it started off sounding like Kirk from Star Trek or whether it's just where we've ended up. But
I can do a bad Kirk doing the same thing, like a terrible Kirk imprint.
Why not have the 20th time that you say it in the show be Kirk?
Why not? You don't seem to want to accept the fact that you're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare, with a man who's the best. With guns, with knives, with phasers, with his bare hands. A man who's been trained to ignore pain, to ignore weather, to live off the land, to eat things that would make a billy goat puke. In Vietnam, his job was to dispose of enemy personnel, to kill, period. That's it.
Okay, now
thank you.
We may as well add Walken.
Let's do it. Ben, you do it.
You don't seem to understand. You're dealing with an expert. Guns, knives. This guy, he does it all.
Oh, that's amazing.
He'll eat stuff that makes a billy goat puke.
Oh, my Jesus.
What about Michael Caine? Should we throw Michael Caine in there?
Why not?
You don't seem to want to accept the fact you're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare. I can't tell if you're laughing because you think it's good or terrible.
No, it's
both
terrific
at the same time.
All of it. All of the
With
above.
guns, with knives, with bloody knives, with his bare hands.
What's the line that he's known for with the sad Alfred line?
You know what? Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon do this.
Oh, yeah. It's so good.
Michael Caine and this Batman thing repeatedly in the various trip, the trip and the trip to Italy and the trip to Spain. It's so goddamn funny, man. But they talk about that where
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I can't do it, Master Wayne. I've already buried too many Batmans. I mean, that's me doing their impression. So
Oh, it's so good.
Oh,
so you could read it in low. You could do it in low Michael Caine. Like that would be the other way. You don't seem to want to accept the fact that you're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare, with a man who's the best. In Vietnam, his job was to dispose of enemy personnel, Mr. Wayne, to kill, period.
This whole sequence was just an excuse to get Batman into the show.
It was, right. And by doing so, killing Jarhigo.
Yep.
You know what would be interesting, too, is to take Rambo and Troutman or Crenna and Stallone and reverse their lines. So if you had Crenna as Rambo and Rambo and Sly as Troutman and see how that would be. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to seem to accept the fact that you're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare, with a man who's the best.
It should be the really gentle trucker.
Yes, you're right.
The truckers sleep in the trucks.
Well, you see, Mike, what you don't seem to understand here is you're dealing with an expert.
Your pappy once told me.
It's so great.
You know, your papa always said. old Papa Troutman.
Jesus Christ.
Good times.
All right.
That was a lot of fun. Anyway,
Climax of the film.
Chad, are you happy with the gas station scene coverage? that we did?
I think that was a good. All I wanted to bring up was the tone change, and I think you made a strong argument about him being an expert. I'm now familiar with his expertise.
You know, the only thing I just want to add to that comment you just made is that you don't seem to want to accept the fact that you're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm done. That's the last time, I swear. I'm pretty sure.
Doubt it.
Dude, your buddy that loves that is going to be in heaven.
All right, so...
Now I'll cut all that out.
Oh, my God. Anyway, do you want to talk about the ending of the film, and then we'll just wrap the whole thing up?
Yeah, man. The end monologue-y breakdown scene is pretty important and pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Troutman coming in and kind of trying to talk Rambo down, and just that whole monologue that Sly does, it really hit me in the feels on this watching. Like, it really got me, and
Definitely
big time.
I thought Sly was really good. It's almost like it's almost hard to understand everything that he's saying when he really breaks down, and it's like, no, that's how it would be. Like, that's how it is when somebody's that upset. You can't understand everything that they're saying, and there's something really genuine there. And we kind of touched on it before, how he grabs Troutman and pulls him to him. It's not like Troutman has like a moment where he's like, oh, I got to give him a hug now. It's like he grabs Troutman and pulls him to him, and it's almost like Troutman is like, it's like he's afraid of him a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't know what's going to happen next, or something along those lines.
interesting. Yeah,
but
so you're sort of positing that you think Troutman is there obviously to try to help him and to talk him down, but he really doesn't know what Rambo is going to do next.
It might be that.
I think that's pretty sweet. Yeah, I could totally see that too.
The all the funny bits aside, the cutting from Stallone to Troutman as Troutman kind of gets the lip quiver and starts to kind of tear up was quite it was really quite well acted by both actors in that scene too.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying. Like, this scene really touched me, and it really just you watch this scene. It's probably the most dialogue that Rambo has together in the whole film, and it's so good, and it really shows what an incredible creative talent Sylvester Stallone is, because that is a excellent piece of acting right there. And, we've done plenty of Stallone movies. I kind of said this before. I'm going to say it again. Like, we've done plenty of Stallone movies, and there's definitely some weird ones in there. There's some funnier ones in there. We've made fun of him, a little bit, a lot bit, plenty of whatever. But I want everybody to understand that he is awesome and totally legit. And this scene is proof of that, man. As is, you know, other bits of work that he's done, but this in particular is just, it's brilliant, man. He really, really does a perfect job of, I mean, I'm not a vet, so I can't comment on that, but when he starts talking about his friend and the shine box and that whole thing, like, I was there, man. I was him. I was like experiencing it, man, you know, like listening to him, like picturing in my head what he was saying and his friend and that kind of loss and trying to, you know, like literally put him back together because it's so shocking, you know, like it
Yeah.
really, really touched me deeply. And the quality of his performance just brought me there, you know. It was incredible.
The comment you made about the dialogue being the most dialogue in the film really brings me back to the Howard Stern interview, where if he was just babbling throughout the whole movie, it wouldn't probably have landed as well now in the climax of the film. And the cutting of all of his dialogue throughout the film, it means that it can bubble up and boil over in this scene, and it really like adds even more gravity to the scene.
Definitely, dude. Perfectly said, Chad.
So it's just a good creative decision even outside of the acting, you know, like getting him to trim his dialogue back.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if you guys saw any of these random nuggets floating around the interwebs, but evidently the Shinebox story was a story that a vet told Sly in his prep for the film. So
Wow.
whether it's word for word or not, I don't know, but it sounds like it might have been quite a true anecdote.
Yeah, that story just it made me want to cry, man. It was just so powerful, man.
So are you guys familiar with the original ending of this? Is that a
I know that there was a suicide ending that was closer to the book, and then there was also a humorous ending that they also filmed. I actually have the special edition DVD, and I haven't watched it. I also have a copy of this on Dig.
Yeah, right. I saw something that was saying that they shot the original ending to the movie, which was the suicide ending, which is he reaches out to what's the Colonel dude's name? What's my papa's name?
Troutman.
So he reaches out to Troutman, whether or not it's the same moment, but he reaches out to take Troutman's hand and he ends up pulling the trigger that Troutman is holding a gun. So like Troutman's going to kill him and he can't bring himself to kill Rambo, and Rambo reaches out and kind of pulls the trigger for him and commits suicide. And that was the original ending. That was the way the movie was always going to end. And then off the cuff, as they were set up and in between takes, they were like, hey, let's shoot a different ending. And the crew and the producers were super pissed off, and they were like, you can't fucking do this, you're over budget. And he's just like, fuck you, we're doing this, and shot the ending that was used in the film like immediately afterwards. And like it was I don't think it was a one shot take, but they did the whole thing where he like walks out and gets in the truck and drives off or whatever with. And so I just thought it was quite cool that, you know, he and Sly and whoever else like were like, hey, let's try something different here, and had some pushback from the producers, but then it ended up, well, maybe not being super realistic in the sense that the guy terrorizes a town and walks away. Like for the character, it was an interesting decision.
Yes, very much so. That's really cool, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought you guys would have stumbled across the same stuff, but it was interesting.
No, I didn't. I did some reading, but it was really I didn't dig too deep.
Word. Nuggets deaths ratings.
Nuggets deaths ratings. NDR.
You guys got nuggets?
I do. I got 2.
You have my blessing.
Of course, they are actor related. No shocker there.
No kidding.
I actually have 3. First is Stallone and Dennehy were in another movie together in the 70s called Fist, which I haven't seen.
Cool. Same.
And that the Lieutenant Clinton Morgan, the leader of the National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have 4. Sorry. Lieutenant Clinton Morgan was played by Patrick Stack, who is the brother of Timothy Stack, who is more well known, and you would probably know him from one of 2 places. Either Son of the Beach, which was that Howard Stern Baywatch ripoff, like from back in like the early 2000s, and also in the 90s, he was the dad on Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
Okay.
Which I love. I don't know about you guys, but like I loved Parker Lewis. I thought that was an awesome show.
Okay.
Both of those references are lost on me.
So this guy's brother was in a show I really liked.
All right, never mind. You all suck. Folks at home, you'll be my friends now.
Just because I don't know it doesn't matter. You know, somebody out there does.
Okay, there you go, Chad. Ben still wants to be my friend.
Dude, a Parker Lewis Can't Lose fan just screamed while driving down the road in their truck, spritzing brute all over the place.
Yeah, well, Parker Lewis also had Abraham Ben Ruby. He's another great actor in it. Anyway,
Parker Lewis death, everybody.
whatever. You think it's so weird, Chad? I know you think it's funny and weird, but what you don't realize is that you're dealing with an expert in films, cast members,
You promised.
cinematography.
You promised you wouldn't do it again.
All right. So also, Brian Dennehy has a daughter named Elizabeth Dennehy, who is a accomplished actress in her own right, and she has been in a number of nerdtastically nerdy things that we love, like Total Recall and The Next
Ooh.
Generation and Quantum Leap and all kinds of stuff. And if you saw her, you would probably recognize her. At any rate, I thought that was kind of interesting. Also, as a guardsman number 8 is Bruce Greenwood, okay, in one of his early films, pieces of work rather. You would know Bruce Greenwood as one of the first big things he did was The Nowhere Man back in the 90s. I don't know if you caught that. That was a really good series, and then it got canceled. And then he also was he played Admiral Pike in the Star Trek reboot, 2009. No. You know what's funny here is that you're laughing at me, and I'm sitting here like, you guys are not nerds. You should know that. If you don't know who Bruce Greenwood is, you should be dead.
Oh, that's so good.
Well, apparently that's second death for me then.
No, I really
Nuggets with Kev. I like how you're like slowly invading the Nuggets section. You're like, I got 17. Let's see. Yeah.
I did. Well, I asked your permission at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah,
if I could
fair
even
enough.
speak, and you granted me permission. So there you go. All right, I'm kidding. So anyway, you guys aren't dead. I still like you. I'll still do the show.
Okay.
You should still know who Bruce Greenwood is.
Okay. I'll look them up.
Yeah, I'm sure you won't.
I won't. All right, I got 2 nuggets. So, nugget number 1, on the cutting room floor of this 3.5-hour cut movie was a scene where Rambo flashes back to him hooking up with a Vietnamese prostitute in Vietnam. And then it's in the cave sequence, so he's in the caves. He has a flashback to him hooking up at a bar in Vietnam with his buddies and hooks up with a Vietnamese prostitute and then flashes back to him crying in the cave. And that prostitute was played by none other than Miao Yin from Big Trouble in Little China, Susie Pie.
Oh my god, dude. That is sick.
And in the special edition DVD, you can actually watch that deleted scene with Susie Pie. So I thought you guys would like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's how you do a nugget.
That right there
That's how you do a nugget.
is how you nugget.
I love how when I do it, I get like freaking stabbed and thrown off the top of the building. And then Chad does the same thing. And everybody's like, oh my God, you're amazing.
Yeah, well, I am amazing. My other nugget's a bit of a weird one, and you guys might have known this, but I didn't know this. Did you guys know that Stallone's has partial face paralysis?
No.
So evidently there was complications when he was being born, and the doctor used forceps, and it severed a nerve in the lower left side of his face, and parts of his lip, tongue, and chin are paralyzed, and that's why he has his particular drawl and facial features. And I thought that was fascinating.
What?
And totally
Wow.
changed my perspective of the dude.
Wow.
Jesus, man. Wow. I did not know that.
Now I kind of feel like a dick for making fun of him, but hey.
I kind of feel like it. Yeah, I don't know if I could do any more Sly impersonations. I totally feel like a dick now.
Me too.
But it's, it's like it's what's helped make him into the star that he is. So I'm sure he's fine with it.
Well, you know what? I want to say that, like, while I do feel bad, at the same time, like, it makes him very unique. Like, it's definitely a trait of his character that it definitely jumps out at you. And I don't mean that in a bad way at all. Like,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like a sort of signature thing that's part of him, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's the Sly impersonations are done with absolute love. It's
Oh my God, totally.
it's what do they say? Imitation is the highest praise, and that's
Totally.
that is true in this case. So
iRobot.
But it definitely fell into the nugget camp. So I thought it was an interesting little tidbit.
Yeah. Ben, iRobot, the Will Smith movie.
yes,
The guy that played the villain. That's Bruce Greenwood.
Oh, I totally get it now, Kev.
Oh,
Thank you.
What a fucking nugget. Thank you. Have I thanked you for that?
No, I'm coming back to resell the nugget.
Nuggets, you use nuggets here.
Get your nuggets here. Get your nuggets here. We got old ones, new ones, fresh ones, stale ones.
Got really fucking boring ones.
This is oh my God. Wow.
All right, maybe try it with hot mustard this time. No, you don't like the hot mustard? What about barbecue sauce? Barbecue sauce?
You want to try it with that Szechuan sauce? This is it's a Happy Meal. It's supposed to be a Happy Meal, but you know, Chad's starting a nugget war.
Yep. You know, I just wanted to be left alone, man, in my nugget section, but here you are. Why are you pushing me? Why are you pushing me?
Why are you pushing me? I'm an unwelcome intruder. That's what I am.
Yep. All right, deaths. Kev, you had a few of them written down, I believe.
Yeah, I do. National Treasure, Book of Secrets. He played the president.
Fuck off.
Bruce Greenwood, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, our good friend, Bruce Greenwood.
Friend of the show, Bruce Greenwood.
Friend of the show.
It's Vin Diesel, Carl Urban, and Bruce Greenwood.
That's it. And Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd, yes.
And Paul Rudd.
And, okay, so firstly, I fell out of the chopper in the first 10 seconds of the show. That's fastest death ever.
Did indeed.
Then Chad died on one of the Dennehy fat jokes. And I don't remember which one. I think he came in late there with another one. Okay, and then you had the awful triple commando death.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That was a really great death.
That was egregious.
Yep.
Egregious. Because he kept trying to sell us on the fact
belligerently plowed through. It's like, no.
We did not know what film that was from.
Hey, happens.
And then you kept coming back for more. That was the best part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Star Trek. He played Admiral Pike. Did you see?
You said that already.
Did you see that? Did you see the Star Trek movies?
Benny, you died. You were murdered with the Batman Michael Caine sequence.
Michael Caine, Alfred sequence.
True.
Yep.
That's true.
I think I had another one in there too, though.
Did you?
Yeah, and I also had an ejection death as well. I seem to remember, but I didn't write it down.
Yes.
Yep. Ratings.
Yeah, let's rate it, man. Algorithm, why don't you go first this time?
Oh yeah, all right. The movie was a good movie. I enjoyed it, and since it actually is relatively challenging to get into the good movie category, it's quite an achievement. So I didn't really expect it to do that well. I didn't expect it to do horribly, but I didn't expect it to do that well. Some of the contemporaries that I think are notable is I ended up sticking it right in between Good Morning Vietnam and The Memphis Belle. So similar, not Memphis Belle, but like kind of warish movies.
I like Memphis Belle. That was a good movie.
And I think the Shine Box anecdote in the end really lines up well with Good Morning Vietnam with his buddy in that movie. So it's a flat 5, like it just sneaks into good movie territory, but it's got good company. It's a couple other movies of the era in that sort of grouping are like The Running Man and Bullet, so it's in good company. It does get beaten by Demolition Man, but as I mentioned in that movie, it's all a nostalgia play, so Demolition Man pips it with a 5.1. But it was quite good.
Wow. Interesting. Very interesting breakdown there.
Excellent.
It beats Cobra, but it doesn't beat Demolition Man.
It should definitely beat Cobra. I think it should beat Demolition Man, but I don't understand the laws of physics that govern your algorithm.
It's a nostalgia play.
Ah, okay.
And it fits so perfectly in between Good Morning Vietnam and Memphis Belle that it just, it made sense.
Right on. All right. Hey, that's why we call you Algorithm Man.
To be fair, you did tie it in with the Rat Burger thing, so.
That's true, I did.
This is
You're
true.
Right. That's true. I thought that was solid. Anyway.
Kev, I'm going to need your help for my rating.
Okay. What help would you need?
Because we never know how what's going to happen when the improbability drive fires up. How many times do you think How many times do you think that Stallone's iconic knife came out in the movie?
Oof.
Like, how many scenes was it involved in? You know, I can think of him like, you know, taking it apart to use the compass a couple times. You know, opening it up to pull out the match. You know, there was the whole scene where Dennehy pulls it out, concealed weapon. You know, so there's how many do you think? I mean, we don't have to be perfectly accurate here. I'm just spitballing.
I'm gonna say
This is like how many jelly beans are in the jar, eh?
I'm gonna say 22.
22.
Yeah, it's my favorite number, and I think it's really somewhere between 20 and 25. So I'm gonna say 22.
Okay, cool. Then I would say that this flick gets 19 out of 22 knife scenes.
I love that, dude. Love that. I love it.
Yeah.
I, as usual, am with Jarhigo in this movie. It's a 9.3. Like it's so good. And I loved it when I was a kid for different reasons. Now I love it even more as an adult for different reasons. And I think it's fantastic. I think it really showcases what an incredible creative talent Stallone is as an actor and really a writer too. And the fact that he came up with that idea to cut all his own dialogue out to make the movie amazing just is excellent. The score is excellent. Like I said, the cinematography, the direction, Dennehy, Crenna, what is not to like? This is an excellent, excellent movie. And so I'm giving it a 9.3. It's high praise.
Don't forget Bruce Greenwood.
Oh, sorry. And I don't know if anybody, folks at home, if you're out there, you might have seen iRobot, Bruce Greenwood, or maybe Star
Captain
Trek.
Pike.
Nowhere Man.
This movie would have been a flat 9, but with him in it, it's a 9.6 or whatever. You
Son of the Beach.
Exactly. Bruce Greenwood as guardsman number 8 really elevated this movie to the 9.3.
They couldn't have done it without him. I mean,
no, really, clearly.
Exactly, man. Exactly. I've already buried too many Batmans.
Oh, man.
All right, so my favorite part of the show, one of them anyway, is algorithm. What are we doing next week? We don't even know, do we?
No, we do. Listener requested Robot Jocks, which I was like, what the fuck is Robot Jocks? And then I looked it up and was like, this was one of my favorite movies when I was 11. Yes, I am on board.
There you go. And Ben and I haven't seen it, so it's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I am pretty pumped.
I'm definitely pumped about Robot Jocks, so stay tuned for that next week, folks.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for this one. Thanks for tuning in, and see you later.
Thanks. See ya.
Nice job. See, Chad, that wasn't so bad. Bruce Greenwood. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. It means the world to me and Chad and Ben. Folks, if you want to support the show further, you can always rate us and review us on iTunes, Podcast Republic, Stitcher, or wherever Brian Dennehy gets his muffin tops. And you can also tell somebody to check out the show. Word of mouth is incredibly powerful and incredibly important. So please get out there and start talking about the show. We're growing an audience and we need your help. You can find the show notes for today's episode in your podcast app o choice or at our website ebd.fm/episodes/59. You can ask us questions using our email, contact@ebd.fm, or on Twitter @AskEBD. You can find me at Mulverine on Twitter. You can find Ben at Jarhigo on Twitter, and you can find Chad at ChadNormal on Twitter. You can find us at most social medias with the handle @EBD Podcast. And that's about it. Thanks for joining us as usual, and we'll see you next time.